I've been thinking a lot about work. And I've heard, seems like a lot of Christians lately who have kind of put down work. And I guess what I mean is, I read a lot of Christian books, I see a lot of Christian radio, hear a lot of Christian radio, see the TV shows, whatever it is, and it seems like what people say, they kind of say, and I'm really talking about the movement of men, that, men put too much emphasis on work, on our jobs, and, everyone knows that the first time two guys meet, it's like kind of like, what do you do? What do you do for a living? It's really, a big part of our identity as men. And, I've been hearing a lot of people say lately that, we shouldn't wrap our identity in work, that we shouldn't put it into work, that we overemphasize work, and I think this may be true. But, I think we've seen it a lot lately as we hear of people in this economy who are losing their jobs, who are out of work. And a lot of times for guys, our lives just fall apart because we put so much of our identity in work. And I think this can be unhealthy. But in light of a lot of this, I've heard a lot of people say that we shouldn't tie our identity in work. And I'm wrestling through this issue. When we look in the story of the garden, the story goes something like this. God places Adam into the garden, and immediately he gives him work to do. It's like no sooner has Adam been created, and he's already given this job. And it seems like from the very first day, God has tied Adam, the man, which in Hebrew, man just means Adam, God has tied his identity to this job that God has given him. We see it twice. First of all, we saw it in Genesis 1, where God creates this man and he says, okay, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. So basically what he's saying is we are to, and then in this case he's talking about men and women, we are to manage this world. It's a job that he's given us that seems to be pretty much tied up into our identity. And then here we have this second story of creation, which granted is not exactly like the first one, but it's got some of the same themes. And one of those themes is that God tells the man, he gives the man his job right away, that you are to tend the garden. And so he's given a job. And so when I think of what does that mean for us today, I just wonder, how is it exactly that our lives and our work is to be tied to our identity? And I think I know what people are saying, because when we move forward through the story, which I hope that you've heard the story from one of my last posts, but when we move forward through the story, we find that Adam's work, the man's work, has been accelerated to oppressive state, where all of a sudden, before his work was light and it was basic and easy, and yet now his work has become oppressive. The ground is just not cooperating as it used to, and so this is part of the curse. And so what we see is both an identity which is based on work, and at the same time we see that work is part of the curse. So we have both the good and the bad when it comes to work. So the question I really want to pose in this post is, what kind of extent, I guess, does God want our work to be in our identity? And when we are out of the job, or when we lose our jobs, is this simply an excuse for us to perhaps change who we are? Or has God made us who we are based on something much deeper than our jobs? That's the question that I would want to wrestle with, because God actually gave Adam his job. And all of you that are carpenters and plumbers and electricians, doctors, whatever it is, I think in our culture we tend to choose our own jobs. And so is it our jobs or our careers that God has given us in his sovereignty, or are those things more perhaps like trivial, like as far as those are just bread-winning things, and perhaps what we are to take from this story is a deeper sense of our calling, like perhaps a calling to reach out to neighbors or friends, or even perhaps the mandate of all people to take care of the community and the earth that we are in. I just wonder what you guys think about this. Like, what do you think as far as careers and jobs? And one of the reasons I'm thinking about this so hard is because I think as single people, I think it's important that we don't... I think there's something in this story about the work that God gave the man to do that kind of preceded him getting married. And the work was more core to who he was than even his identification with his wife. And I think that those who are perhaps in that mode of seeking after wife or romance or whatever it is, or even building a marriage, we have to wrestle with this whole set of priorities of dealing with work and dealing with family. And, which one comes higher? And I guess that's one of the things I'm wrestling with, is that which one is higher, even in the context of a marriage. What do we completely deprioritize our work for the sake of the marriage? Or do we build the marriage around what it is that we do? And is it okay for what we do to define who we are? So what do you think about it in the context of this story? That's about all the time I have. Took me 10 minutes to ask one question, but I'm curious on the answers that you guys have, because I feel like this is a topic that could generate quite a bit of discussion. Alright, I'll see you next time. We've got more of this story to cover. Alright, bye.